his dope moment, he mentioned that as a contractor, we don't, well, myself included, we don't get vacation. So when holidays come around, you want to do whatever you can to make up your hours, because every hour you're billing, you're basically losing money. So he had this plan. He was going to work a little bit extra during the evenings and a little bit on the weekend. But during the weekend, he realized after he VPN'd in, he didn't know his IP address. So he couldn't get to his computer. So he happened to go back to the office, looked up his IP address, came back home, realized he didn't set up his computer to allow remote connections. So needless to say, he probably didn't get to work much. Can you please welcome Vince, who's going to be talking to us about the future of application development.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Bullinger.
Good morning.
Well, today we're going to be talking to you. I'm going to be talking to you about the future of application development. So, I read an article last week that kind of planted the seeds for this presentation, and it really kind of struck me as really important and something I should share with people. And not only do I wanted to make this little presentation, but it's kind of like the outline for larger presentations that I kind of want to give at use for conferences. I think this is a really important idea. Kind of keep that in mind when we're going over the presentation today. So on the agenda, I'm going to talk about why you should care about the future of application development. Should be kind of a pretty good sell for this crowd, a lot of IT people here, and should mean a lot for your future. And there are kind of three big things to think about that we're going to discuss today: mobile development, the cloud, and HTML5. And the last thing to think about as far as what is going to be your future is agility and versatility. So not only the agility to change kind of on a dime, your career, where you're heading, and kind of listening, putting your finger to the wind and seeing where the wind's blowing, but also versatility, being able to do more than one thing. You're not going to be able to sit in a silo and do one thing for 20 years, like you have in the past. So, why should I care? We're entering the perfect storm, and I'll get to more about that quote in a minute, for a giant application development shift. We have the emergence of mobile technologies, the emergence of the cloud, and HTML5 coming into their own. And these three things combined are really going to create this giant change. We're already starting to see it, but it's kind of still in its nascency. The current cycle of development is very well established, very thorough. You know, we're getting on our third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh iterations of things like .NET or Java, and our tools are really established, and we're really being able to get a lot done in these particular technologies. And it kind of seems like when you look at the future that really things are going to be changing quite a bit in the near future. The new stuff, like what I've mentioned, HTML5, the cloud, mobile development, really not all that new anymore. They're getting to start being kind of ubiquitous. And companies are going to, and are currently, mastering these technologies, and they're kind of figuring out their niches. And if you kind of pay attention, you'll notice there's certain experts that are trying to figure out a lot of these complexities. So basically, you kind of have to ask yourself, are you going to be on the groundswell at the bottom of this? Are you going to be coming along for the ride? Are you going to be kind of flip the side and just kind of be a cog, really? I don't really think a lot of people in this room are of the latter group. So that's why I feel this is important for us. So, this perfect storm quote to which I alluded earlier. Cameron Purdy, the Vice President of Development at Oracle's Application Server Group, said, "Cloud, HTML5, and mobile. These three things will conspire to be a perfect storm for our industry. The combination of HTML5, mobile devices, and the cloud is a rogue wave." So basically, giant tidal wave coming. It's kind of hard to predict what's going on. And all I'm saying is, hey, get to the highlight, right? We'll figure it out. So mobile development. Mobile internet usage has doubled every year since 2009. And it's predicted that by 2015, it's actually going to surpass normal desktop browsing. So think about that. We're all gearing everything toward desktops and laptops. That's actually going to be in the minority in just 3 short years, according to projections. There are 5.9 billion mobile subscriptions on Earth, but only 7.025 billion people on Earth. So kind of do the math on that. Realize that most everyone, probably everyone in this room has a cell phone, and I bet the majority of them are probably smartphones. So you probably all engage in some sort of mobile browsing as well. And this isn't like a rich person thing. Obviously, the majority of people on Earth are doing this kind of thing. So, mobile struggles. and this kind of points out how important it is to kind of get in on things, and also how there aren't a lot of experts at this point. When you say mobile development, well, that's not just like if you're a .NET guy, it's not like some tiny version of .NET, or it's a little tweak, or if you're a Java guy, it's a little tweak, and all of a sudden you're a full mobile developer. And you're like, well, hold on, I got to learn Android, I got to learn iOS, Windows Phone, and then not only just tiny mobile devices like your phone, but bigger things like tablets. So not only are the technologies the same or different, but also the devices are dramatically different. So it's kind of a lot to think about. And then when you think about people like Accelerator and AppMobi and plenty of others, I just didn't have a lot of enough room here to put any more icons on there. You're starting to see these experts kind of emerge and trying to soften some of these hurdles over which people have to jump. So these are the kind of areas where you might want to jump in on and try to make a name for yourself, really. So next topic is the cloud. It's a concept that's been around for a really long time. I remember Microsoft tried to do something 10 or 15 years ago, and they kind of said, you know what, we're a little ahead of the game, we're going to back off a bit. They waited a decade, and then they said, okay, people are ready for it, we're going to come back with Azure. It's only recently really taking off. People know about Azure and Amazon Cloud Services, and a couple other things like that. And it's kind of starting to take shape. There are a few companies, Google, whatever, they're grabbing their own niches. And it's going to be a much bigger player in the near future. What I've noticed is that it kind of opens the door for little guys. People say, well, in order to do this cool idea I have to have this giant infrastructure. Well, you don't really have to do that anymore. You just kind of plug into something that exists and use it for the little bit of your business or your tiny app or whatever that will actually work for you and will actually help you to get your achievement. And also spawns a lot of entrepreneurship. Because like I said, the entrance to doing these kind of powerful things is kind of gone. Something that is extremely important and will get bigger in the future. And of course, there are cloud services as well. Yeah, I've mentioned things like Windows, Azure, and web services. Well, yeah, Google Apps is kind of cloudish too, but is it as cloudish? Is it kind of a different version? Things like Intel Cloud SSO, iCloud, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. These are just kind of different levels of cloud.
Yeah, I'm just curious. This is very interesting. So do you foresee a time with desktops in the future, desktops or laptops will buy, where right now you want, like, there's terabytes you can get on your hard drive. Or maybe it'll scale back to like 10 gig and everything will be on a cloud or something for all our personal information?
Wonderful question. I kind of hypothetical. I don't know. Think. That's the kind of thing you have to think about. Where we have these different directions down which we can go. We have different options. Maybe we'll have to be versatile enough to develop for those kinds of things. And it kind of leads to another point I'm going to make in the short future. So. All right, so HTML5. Anyway, HTML5. HTML5 and JavaScript are kind of in and of themselves becoming a bit of a platform. They're integrating with Windows 8, for example. If you didn't know, Java is going to come up with something similar, where there's an integrated Java compiler that where you're coding in HTML and JavaScript, and all of a sudden it's Java. So, just like with Windows 8. Anyway, HTML5 is dramatically more powerful than the previous version of HTML. And although I kind of like developing in plugins, it's kind of fun, I am more and more coming to the conclusion that HTML5 is powerful enough to kind of push a lot of plugins and a lot of their power to the curb. And it's only going to get more and more obvious that that's the case in the near future. It's a lot more versatile and reusable than the alternatives. If you use something like Silverlight, well, you're not going to be able to move that to anywhere else. If you use something like Flash, well, not everyone's going to support it. This is going to be supported much more vigorously. And it's also kind of a movement toward a thin server model, where in the past, usually it's, I'm going to do all my heavy lifting on the server, and then I'm going to give you this tiny little response for you to display. And we're kind of moving more in the way of, here's a whole bunch of stuff for you to figure out as much of the annotation as you can on your device. Here's some JavaScript files, here's some whatever, for you to do it and do a lot of the computation there. And you're only kind of giving periodic updates to the server saying, oh, why don't you mark this down in your database? Why don't you save my score? That kind of thing. So in conclusion, HTML5, the cloud, and mobile, kind of the new hotness. So we kind of have to consider that when moving forward. I feel like everything is and will be shifting this way for quite some time in the near future, starting now, well, some years ago, I would say. And I feel that if you're behind in any of these, which I'd say at least the majority of us are behind in this one, including myself, now's the time to catch up. There's no time to be swept away and be forgotten. And I kind of want to extend this for presentations maybe to different groups, like the .NET user group or mobile user group, or maybe JavaScript user group, that kind of thing. So if you have any ideas for demos that would connect all three of these, and certain technologies to use that would be exemplary of the kinds of things that I've been discussing, feel free to speak up, because I feel like I'm going to walk in with a couple of silly ideas and a bunch of the extras and like that. So I kind of want to look like I know what I'm talking about. So if you have any ideas, let me know. And with that, I'll turn this back over to the Toastmaster.
Thank you, Vince. This particular change is